Hello everyone, it's Foo here, and we have just had a Pokemon Presents in which 4 new Pokemon for the upcoming DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet were revealed. These Pokemon have generated a lot of discussion with some controversial opinions, and I want to talk about the one that may get the most overlooked, but I'm actually most excited about. So there was Raging Bolt, a new Paradox Pokemon that looks very similar to Raikou. Its official artwork looks much better than the screenshot we got, so hopefully it will look more like that in the game. We have Iron Crown, that's a Paradox Pokemon variant of Cobalion it seems, with horns that materialize maybe only when it's in battle, kind of like Iron Leaves, whose blades only materialize when attacking. We have Archaludon, which is an evolution of Duraludon. It's going to be super strong because Duraludon's a strong Pokemon already. This thing will have even higher stats. And also, that means Duraludon will be able to hold the Eviolite, which is pretty crazy. But I was also super excited about Eviolite Bisharp before I knew exactly how strong King Gambit was going to be. So Archaludon's looking to be a very strong Pokemon. And then we have Dipplin, which I'm thinking might get a little bit overlooked next to all of these behemoths because of its diminutive stature, but this Pokemon is shaping up to be something pretty special. It's a regional evolution of Applin, and it's a grass dragon type, much like the other evolutions of Applin. But where it differs are it's got a new signature ability and a new signature move. Currently we know this from the Japanese website for the games, and the new ability we think is called Super Sweet Syrup, which lowers the opponent's evasion when it's sent into battle. So it's kind of like Intimidate for the opponent's evasion, meaning that they're easier to hit. We don't know how many stages evasion is lowered by. If it's anything like Sweet Scent, it might be 2 stages, but I think it's probably more likely to be 1 stage, more like Intimidate. It means that your moves are 33% more likely to hit, so that means that anything that's 75 accuracy or higher becomes 100% accurate. That includes moves like Sleep Powder, so that is going to be super strong. If you have a Sleep Powder user, you can switch in Dipplin, reduce the opponent's evasion, and put the opponent to sleep. So that's really, really huge. It's worth noting that Hypnosis or Sting, other sleep moves will be more accurate, but they still have a chance to miss because they have low starting accuracy. So Hypnosis, which has 60 accuracy, goes to 80 accuracy, which is still a little bit shaky. I've talked about wanting an ability like this before. I thought that maybe Illuminate could be repurposed to reduce the opponent's evasion because they shine a light on them, but this is so exciting to see that actually they have implemented an evasion reducing ability. What I love about this is that it makes playstyles that currently are not consistent actually viable, even in a competitive setting like a tournament, and they can be consistent because you can then hit moves which otherwise you couldn't really rely on. So that is super cool. I'm really, really excited for that ability and working out some interesting combinations. Obviously, you can pair it with things like Blizzard, and also kind of disgustingly, the genies in Tornadus, Thundurus, Landorus, and Enamorus all have very powerful signature moves that do spread damage but have shaky accuracy. These would all become 100% accurate if the opponents had -1 evasion. So Dipplin could make some of these Pokemon extremely potent. There are some really cool strategies out there just because this Pokemon will exist. Also, on top of all that, it has a signature move in Syrup Bomb, which lowers the opponent's speeds for 3 consecutive turns. So I'm guessing it kind of works like Grapplock's Octolock, and at the end of each turn, the opponent's speed is reduced by 1 stage. And that's really, really strong, really potent. It could be a pretty interesting retaliation to Tailwind, for example, forcing your opponent to be slower. By the time Tailwind wears off, they'll be very slow, but it might mean that they have to switch around a bit if you've got good speed control on your side as well. So this Pokemon is looking like it's going to be a very good support Pokemon and really bringing something different to battles. I'm just hoping that it's got decent enough stats that it can actually be competitively viable. With an ability and a move like this, you'd want it to be a good utility Pokemon, so preferably very bulky, or pretty bulky and very fast are kind of the combinations that you'd look for here. You probably don't want kind of a lot of attack or special attack at the cost of having any bulk, because when you switch this thing in, if it can't take attacks, then you'll lose that ability to switch in and get the opponent's evasion dropping, and it will mean that your strategy might fall apart a little bit. And it's especially important with Grass Dragon typing. Like, that's decent typing to switch into certain attacks, it can have really good team synergy, but it does have some glaring weaknesses. Its 4 times weakness to ice is really bad. At the moment, having any kind of weakness to fairy is really not ideal, because Fluttermane in VGC is a potent force, so you need to be careful about that. I've actually proposed a couple of stat spreads here, taking inspiration from Appleton and Flapple, which we know both have base stat totals of 485, which means that when you add up all of their stats, it equals 485, and they both have a highest stat of 110. So knowing that, and assuming that Dipplin will follow the family line, this first proposed set is that fast utility set that I mentioned. So if it's going to be fast, obviously the highest stat would be speed, and so I've put the 110 stat there, and then I've played around with the numbers so that the base stat total, when you add it all up, is 485. So that means I wanted a high HP pool to make this Pokemon bulky enough, and base 95 is great at level 50 if you max invest your EVs. You've got over 200 HP, which is a lot of HP, and you've got decent enough defenses to take a few hits. At the complete cost of attack and special attack, this Pokemon will not have good damage output, so you need to appreciate that this is solely a utility Pokemon, but it does mean that you can come in, get your ability to activate, take a hit or two, maybe go for your signature move for some speed control, switch out, and then come in again for more ability activations later. And that will be especially effective if this Pokemon gets momentum moves like U-turn. It would be really good if it got something like Strength Sap, because that would allow Dipplin to reduce the opponent's damage output while healing itself, and because it's so fast, that reduction in attack would go before the opponent actually gets any damage off. So that could be a really potent set for debuffing your enemies while your partner Pokemon deals significant damage. The alternative is having a very bulky Pokemon that can still hit kind of hard, but probably is much slower. And actually, Appleton's stat spread is ideal for demonstrating that, but I very much doubt that Dipplin will have identical stats to Appleton. Appleton does just seem very bulky because of its bigger body, so my proposed bulky set for Dipplin would focus more on its defenses rather than its HP pool. So this is what I propose for Dipplin. Considering that we're focusing on defenses, I've put the 110 in its special defense, and I've also made its defense very high at base 100. It's got an okay HP pool of 85, and its special attack is decent as well at base 90, meaning that at least it can hit pretty hard with some Draco Meteors. Its attack is pretty low, and then its speed I've put as 40. Now Dipplin looks like it's gooped to the ground with something sticky like it's syrup, so there is potential for it to be very slow. And if you're slow, it's kind of best to be extremely slow so that you're very good under Trick Room. So ideally, the base 40 speed would maybe be even slower, like Appleton's base 30 or lower still, so that those stats could go elsewhere and you could have a bit more special attack or something. But this is what I'm proposing for Dipplin. I think that this is probably the most realistic thing to expect. So those are two potential stat spreads for Dipplin. I think that either could make it work really well to get consistent switch-ins for those ability activations. I actually think Dipplin has a very high chance to be a decent Pokemon in VGC, but more than anything, I'm just excited because it will bring different play styles and some very creative team building. So that's all I wanted to say today. 4 interesting looking Pokemon, but Dipplin is the one that I'm looking forward to getting my teeth into the most. Let me know about your opinions of the newly revealed Pokemon in the comment section below. All that's left to be said is I've been Foo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.